Welcome to After the Call, where we answer the questions you have to help you get the most out of your CPI equipment. I'm Brandy Fuller, and joining me again today is Dave Melvin. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Brandy, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for coming back.
You're welcome.
Are you ready to go through this again?
I'm ready.
I'm in brain picking mode. Okay. So last time when we met, we talked a lot about product and delivery and some of the challenges that people might see in the field or some issues and how to troubleshoot that. Today, Dave, I want to learn all about boards and when boards fail, when they don't fail, and how do I know if an issue I'm seeing is a board failure or if it's some other issue. So let's start there. Let's start with BevMax.
All right. Let me kind of do a BevMax Media 1 G-board, because that's where you probably get the most calls today, because you've got a lot of age on that board. And let's say that I get to the machine and it's stuck on loading. It just says loading.
The screen just says loading?
It'll be a blue background and it's loading. It'll have some script.
Okay.
It's just stuck. Or I could have a black screen with a Crane logo, but it's stuck.
Okay.
It's just not going anywhere.
Okay.
So the very first thing, the gut reaction is, oh, I got a bad board.
Okay.
So before we go down that path, let's try a couple of things first.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first thing is turn the power off, wait 3 or 4 minutes, power back up. If it goes back to the same thing, whether it's stuck on the loading with the blue or it's stuck on the Crane, the next thing is what you want to probably go down the path of reloading the board with software.
Okay. So let's stop for a minute. So we have to remember that these machines come with computers in them.
Yep.
And so it's very much like your computer on your phone or on your desktop. If something gets stuck, it could be a glitch in the system, and just a simple reboot of the system could clear it out.
You're exactly right.
Okay. So I reboot it, I unplug it, power down, whatever, and then wait a few minutes and then plug it back in, power back up.
Right.
It goes back to the same thing. You're saying my next step would be what?
Redo the software. I could have a lot of age on the board. I could have a lot of sales, which means there's a lot of data stored. Maybe I'm running out of memory.
Okay.
And so because I can't get past the load, my only recourse is to reflash the board, which means I wipe everything out and start new.
So that's like a factory reset almost.
It is, and that would be the next step if I could get power up. But if I can't get past the load screen, I have to do a software reset.
A software reset.
So I reload the software, wipe all the memory off the board, and I'm going to start as if it's brand new.
So that's going to be a time investment, maybe.
It's a time investment, but it's a whole lot cheaper than replacing the board.
Okay. So we're talking about let's save money, maybe not time, by trying to reload the software.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's say I've reloaded the software and it's still not giving me what I want.
Then I'm going to replace the board.
Then you're going to replace the board. Yeah. Okay. So, and that's for all machines, or is that just BevMax?
And it'd be, with that scenario, all merchant BevMax Media 1.
Okay.
With a G board.
With a G board. Okay. Yeah. So what about some of the other?
So if it's a BevMax Classic.
Okay.
Pretty good, solid. It didn't have all the storage that the touch screens have.
Sure.
So the board failures there are probably a whole lot slimmer.
Okay.
And I'm going back a generation or two. So with the Classic, if I had a board failure, it's not more so because of programming, it's because of a component failure. Because that controlled my X motor, my Y motor, my port motor, my cup motor.
So what would I see on a BevMax Classic?
You might have a horizontal error or a vertical error, and you can't make your cup go up and down, or you can't make your cup go left to right. Okay. And I could have a component on the board that has failed, and then that would be a board failure.
Okay. So how would I troubleshoot that?
If it's a Classic, I'm going to go down, I'm going to go the Classic generic mode button 2 times F*1. So that takes me into position test.
Okay, Dave, you say that really fast.
I know.
Okay.
And
You probably say it 45 times every day.
I
Okay.
do, at least.
So I'm going to hit mode button
2 times.
twice.
The letter F is in Frank.
Okay.
Star, then the number 1.
Okay.
If your BevMax has 2 door switches, the switch on the left is a power interrupt switch.
Yep.
The switch on the right is your service switch, which allows access to programming.
Yes.
But if you have a BevMax that only has 1 switch, then it's dual. It's the power interrupt as well as the service switch.
Mm-hmm.
So once I've got into position test, I pull out either on the left door switch or the single door switch. So now I have power to the motors.
Okay.
By pushing any letter, the cup should go up to that letter that you chose.
Mm-hmm.
If you push any number, then the cup should go to the right of any number that you chose. So let's say I chose A5.
Okay.
The cup should go up to the A level and then over to the 5.
Mm-hmm.
If it only goes to the A and never goes to the right, I'm saying, that's strange. It's not going right. So I'll hit F, send it back home.
Mm-hmm.
Gets back home. I push in on the door switch to neutral position so I don't have power.
Mm-hmm.
And I manually try to take my hand and move the cup right to left.
And why do you do that?
Because I want to know, is there something preventing it from moving that's mechanical?
Oh, okay.
Or something that's been dropped to the bottom and overlooked that's preventing it from moving. But if I move it and it moves freely, I think, okay, now I'm down to, I've either got a motor problem or I've got a board problem.
Okay.
My rule of thumb is board is always last.
Meaning you always...
I'm going to look at that motor first.
Okay. So you mean when you say board is always last, you mean like replacing the board would be your last resort?
Replacing the board is my last resort.
Okay. So let's look at the motors. So now we're going to check out motors.
Yep.
Okay.
And let's just say, okay, because I've got 2 motors in a machine. I've got a Y motor and an X motor. They're identical, so they're interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
So I swap them. Does it move left to right now? No. So the only thing that's left is the board.
Okay. So let's recap that real quick. So we went into...
BevMax Classic.
Okay, thank you. We're in BevMax Classic.
With generic programming.
With a generic programming, meaning...
And we went into the mode
that's right.
Gave us position test.
Yeah, in the position test. And we're pressing A5, for example, to see if it goes up and if it goes over to the 5.
Correct.
If it goes up but doesn't go to the 5, then you're going to manually try to make it move to the 5 to make sure that there's nothing impeding it mechanically.
Right.
If it freely does go to the 5, then your conclusion is there's a programming issue.
Or a motor issue.
Or a motor issue, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you swap out the motors, and if it still doesn't...
try again.
And try again.
And if it still doesn't do it, then, I could have a harness issue, but more often than not, it's not a harness, it's a board.
It's a board, okay. Okay, then you swap out the board as a last resort.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome, thanks for that.
Yep.
Okay, what are we going to talk about next?
Well, we still stick with the board failures because we get a lot of people assuming that boards are bad or they need to replace the board. And sometimes you have to replace the board is bad. But I want to go down a path of a board, and because you mentioned it's like a computer. So a board is a computer, and sometimes it gets confused or it gets a wrong command.
How is that possible? Technology gets confused?
Well, because everything goes through electric.
Yes.
So at the outlet, if I have a electrical outlet that doesn't have a ground, isn't not connected to earth ground. So I can pick up when somebody runs the copier machine, that can send a signal and it feeds back through the electrical line. And because I don't have a ground, my vending machine can pick that up as a command.
It's like interference.
It's interference, exactly. So with that being said, if I receive that command, but I don't know what to do with it, I'm going to try my best to obey. So it's kind of stuck. And I ask this question all the time. Let's raise your hands if you've ever turned the power off and back on to fix your machine.
Sure.
And it's usually a chuckle or two, and everybody says, well, yeah, I've done that. So that's usually a sign of interference, whether it's internal or external. We have to have a good ground, both internal and external.
Okay.
So let's just say that I turn the power off back on, voila, it fixes it. Then I think, okay, I've got an interference problem. I'll catch that the next time when I've got time. That's usually the answer. But it's always a good rule of thumb when you install a machine,
Mm-hmm.
as well as when you go to fix a machine,
Mm-hmm.
is to check your electrical usage.
And how do you do that?
So with a volt ohm meter,
Okay.
if you know how to use it, if you go from hot to neutral, you should have 120,
Okay.
120 volts. From hot to ground, you should have 120 volts. And that's just kind of generic. It can be 117 or it can be 124, but we'll just use 120 as a reference.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go from neutral to ground, you should have 0 volts. So what we use as a rule of thumb is if you have 1.5 volts or higher on neutral to ground, then you have a noise potential of causing you damage or interference to your machine.
I see. Okay. So an ohm reader.
Volt.
A volt meter.
Voltmeter. Volt/ohm meter.
Okay. All right. So I have seen you do that in your classes.
Yep.
Where you go through that. I think that's level 1, right?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next?
So let's assume that my voltage from the wall to the machine is good. Then I can also, and I still get this every Tuesday morning, I got to come out and turn the power off and back on. It's one of those weird things.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. It goes back to when I was a very young man, new to the industry. Electronics was still fairly new. And inventing. I'll rephrase.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what? Are you like Fred Flintstone?
Yeah. But anyway, I get hear about this machine that's at a power plant in northern Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Every Monday morning at 7 a.m. it says no money required.
At a vending machine?
On a snack.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to the snack machine.
Yeah. Oh, well, they usually called it in when it was empty.
Yeah.
But it was every Monday morning, 7 a.m. It said no money required.
Yep.
And so what we finally found out was we didn't have a good ground.
Okay.
But every Monday morning at 7 a.m., the power plant shut their power off and tested their generators. And that created a pile of noise.
Mm.
And it just so happened that one command was the same as if I'd pushed the freeze in button inside the machine. So we isolated that, fixed the ground, no more problem.
Wow. I almost think, did somebody figure that out?
It took a while.
No, I mean like on the other end. They're like, hey, if we just shut the power off and we test our generators, the vending machine's free.
No. No, that was one of those weird accidents.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what else do we need to talk about with that?
The software is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people nowadays, because all of our software is loaded via USB,
Okay.
always keep up to date. It's just a good idea. The changes we've made are always for the better.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a required change because of security or whatnot, but it's always good to keep up to date with your software.
So tell me, you told me a little while ago about an issue. Somebody had an issue updating their software and they made a common error in that. Can you describe that error?
Sure. We have a FTP site
Mm-hmm.
where we're making software available to customers where they can go sign in and download it. And so that way they have current software available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a call and I said, you really need to update your software. That was the answer. And so I gave him the site. He goes to it. A few days later, he texts me back and he says, that didn't work. And so I questioned, as I normally do, I ask a bunch of questions. And I came to the conclusion that on this FTP site, you have to download the file, then you have to extract it because it's in a zip folder.
Oh, yeah.
And so what he had done was he just downloaded the file and he knew that he had to put it in an Atlas folder. So he created an Atlas folder and put it in it.
But he forgot to extract it.
He didn't extract it.
I see.
So
Okay.
when I extract it, it automatically is in a Atlas folder. So you don't have to do anything.
Okay.
So that was.
So when you extract it and you're just choosing the location, you choose the blank USB as the location.
Yep.
And then all the files are deposited there. And then you go to your machine and do your update.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's good. Hey, there's a good piece of information.
Yeah.
Extract your files.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, that's really great. So that's all with BevMax, right? Is there anything else regarding BevMax and a board that would be
Um,
helpful?
we'll talk about current BevMax.
So
Current,
BevMax,
current BevMax refresh.
okay.
Today, I've got 6 boards. I've got a port board. I've got a environmental board. I've got a X board. I've got a Y board. I've got a cup board. I think that's 6. I
Do it
didn't
again.
count.
Well,
Port, cup, X, Y, and environmental, and then the control board.
the control board. You forgot the control board.
That's what the control board. Okay. So now you have all these boards. And so um, if you get to a machine and it says out of service,
Yeah.
if it's a media, and it might say XCOM,
Yep.
or you might, if it's a classic, it'll say unavailable.
Hmm.
And then when you open it up and get into your diagnostics, it'll say XCOM.
Hmm.
So X is your X board, and COM is communication.
Oh, Dave, you're bringing back memories. Is this the video I'm thinking about?
Yes,
That one that took me forever to edit? Okay.
Yes, it is.
So, for our listeners, we do have a YouTube channel, and there is a great video that Dave and I developed probably about a year ago on how to isolate which board might need to be replaced, right?
Troubleshooting communication issues.
Yes, troubleshooting communication issues. And we'll link that in the description. But okay, so go ahead, Dave.
So, with that being said, in our current production BevMax Refresh, we've got multiple boards.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of having a single board, like the Classic did, if I had a board failure, I had that costly big board.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only was it was the main controller, but it was the driver board. It was all built into one. So today, I've got all these unique boards that drive either the X motor or the Y motor or the cup or whatever it may be. With that being said, troubleshooting the BevMax Refresh, it seems like it's confusing to a lot of people because it's still new to them.
Okay.
And it's different than the other BevMaxes they've had.
Okay.
But it's still relatively easy to troubleshoot. And you've heard me say this a million times. Let the machine be your tool.
Yes. That's a Daveism. I feel like we should have I'm going to create something. I'm going to create a Daveism graphic. And anytime there's a Daveism, we're just going to flash it on the screen.
There you go. But anyway, but using the machine, let the machine help you see what it's seeing. It doesn't matter what I see.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the machine sees this, I have to see what the machine sees as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can go from there.
Okay. I want to talk about, you told me an example a few moments ago about a pin being bent and multiple selections going down. Can you?
On a merchant.
Right. That was on a merchant, but it could happen, couldn't it?
It can happen on any snack.
On any snack machine. Yeah. Okay. So can you tell our audience that?
Sure.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good example.
Yeah. It hadn't been too long ago. I was at a machine, and the complaint was it's bending 105, 107 every time I make any selection off of the 1 tray.
Even if you're not selecting 105 or 107?
Right. Off the 2 tray, 3 tray, 4 tray, the 5s and 7s off every tray would bend together.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So what I found was, or what I suspected was the harness, one of the harnesses was plugged in wrong.
Okay.
And it was, but when I really had to put my glasses on to really look, and I found that there were 2 pins bent and touching each other. And then when the harness was plugged in over top of it, those 2 pins were basically shorted together. So it caused those 2 motors to run on every tray.
Oh, I see.
So once I put my glasses on, I could actually see it. Then I bent the pins back and got everything straight.
Okay, so I've got to ask Dave,
Sure.
You keep saying you put your glasses on and you could finally see it. How long did it take you to put your glasses on? How much did you fiddle around with it before you're like, maybe I should put my glasses on?
Well, I unplugged it first and plugged it back in because I just thought it was plugged in wrong.
Okay.
And then it did the same thing. So then I turned the power back off, I unplug it, put my glasses on. I think, oh, now I can see what's
There's
really
the error.
Now I can really see what's wrong.
That's funny. So make sure if you have poor eyesight that your glasses
Yeah, you
are
wear your
maybe one of the
glasses.
first
Yeah,
tools you grab.
yeah,
Let your eyes be your
yeah,
tool, Dave.
yeah. Don't leave home without them.
That's right. Awesome. All right. Well, what about anything else with a merchant board that customers may encounter? What would they see that, or with any of the machines, what are they going to see that's going to indicate to them, maybe I have a board issue?
Um, this is one that I hear on a merchant. I won't say often, but I've heard it enough throughout the years. And they'll say, I owe voltage error.
Okay.
And it's on a merchant. And
Mm-hmm.
it's I as an icicle, O as an octopus,
Mm-hmm.
error,
Mm-hmm.
voltage. That's usually 99.999% a bad SureVent board.
Oh.
And what that does is it causes a voltage drop on the IO, which is the driver board in the merchant, and then that creates that error. And by simply just unplugging, most people, I mean, I'm going to start with the SureVent just because I've seen it more often than not, but it could be, I could have a bad
A bad what?
coin mechanism.
Okay.
So if you have a IO voltage error, what you want to do is isolate and remove items from the IO board.
Oh, okay.
Then power back up, and then if when your error is gone, you power off, plug something in one at a time, power back up,
And see if you duplicate the error.
yeah. And usually it sounds like it's a long process, but it's an easy process, and it gets you where you need to be by process of elimination.
Okay.
Because there again, I want to be able to replace at minimal cost. I want to be I want to be the guru that I can fix anything and doesn't cost any money.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
It's not always possible,
Right.
but that should be everybody's goal. You don't want to be a parts changer.
Right.
So
right. Just having the knowledge and the understanding of how the machine works.
And you learn by doing.
And you do, right.
Yeah.
And the more experience you get encountering different issues
exactly
and troubleshooting. So I think my big takeaway is really the isolating the issue and doing things maybe one at a time to see where exactly the error is.
Yep.
Not just go in and change the main board.
Yep.
Right.
Before it's all said and done, you're going to be a certified technician.
I will be?
Yep.
Hey, that'll be great. Awesome. Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate so much the information you have as always. And I know our listeners do as well. You're a fount of vending information. No, no comment? You don't like being a fount?
I've been there, done that. How's that?
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss on future episodes, please leave a comment or email us at afterthecall@cranepi.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the questions you have to help you get the most out of your CPI equipment. Until then, I'm Brandy Fuller. Keep that equipment running.